how are we making quicker decisions where it matters, which is in the general manager seat and the directors of sales seats. At the end of the day, they are the business leaders of our hotels. They're driving that success and sometimes not success at the properties. So what are we doing to help them make decisions quicker?
Welcome to the Hotel Moment podcast, presented by Revinate, the podcast where we discuss how hotel technology shapes every moment of the hotelier's experience. Tune in as we explore the cutting-edge technology transforming the hospitality industry. Hello, and welcome to the Hotel Moment podcast. I'm your host, Karen Stevens, the Chief Marketing Officer of Revinate. And today we are excited to speak with Ben Campbell, the President and CEO of Hospitality America. With over a decade of experience in the hospitality industry, Ben has built an impressive career, holding leadership positions in operations, sales, and strategy. He's played an instrumental role in shaping Hospitality America's value-driven approach, which focuses on operational excellence and the growth of its people. Under his leadership, Hospitality America has been able to create an environment of collaboration, adaptability, and humility that drives success. Let's dive into his journey, leadership philosophy, and insights into the evolving hospitality landscape. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Karen.
You know what? It's a pleasure to have you here. It's interesting. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording, so we have a lot of juicy topics to get into. But before we do that, I would love for you to take us back to the beginning. So can you remember your first day in hospitality?
Oh, definitely. I graduated college in 2009. I was an athlete at a small Division I school. So that was my life growing up with sports. And growing up in the South, I grew up in a very hospitable family. And I was like, okay, now what am I going to do when I graduate in 2009 and we're in the Great Recession, right? And I remember just a position I had through college was at the Carolina Panthers Stadium. And I remember that experience of being able to provide experiences to others and what that was like. And being like, this only happened once a week. We were having a game, and the impact of fans coming to see the Carolina Panthers play and how I had a big part in that. It was just life changing. It was like, yes, I think this is the direction I want to go. I'm passionate about making others experiences as great as I feel about when I go to experience, hospitality or sporting events or anything like that.
Wow, that's great. So it's bringing that guest experience, whether it's in the stadium or whatever, helping people enjoy their leisure time. I think basically the core of it, right? Which is really cool. So, and since you've been in hospitality, you've worn a lot of hats. So you've done some revenue management, general management, and now you're the president and CEO of Hospitality America. So can you talk a little bit about how your early experiences shaped your, kind of trajectory now as the leader of a management company like Hospitality America?
Yeah, I mean, even dating back to that first time when I got that first job at the Carolina Panthers Stadium, my parents instilled in me two core principles. That is, leave it better than you found it. No matter if it's, you're staying at a short-term rental somewhere. I remember going to the beach and thinking like, man, we're cleaning this house more than we're cleaning our house, and leave it better than you found it, and treat it like it's yours. And so when I take those principles into my positions, even at a young age at the Panthers Stadium, I was always questioning, okay, why are we doing it this way? Can it be done better? Is there a better way to reduce our spoilage? Is there a better way to enhance our guest experience? And so I think just always having that, thought process around that and the focus of how can we make the operation better, but also how can we make the guest experience better. I've taken that no matter if it's been in those positions as concessions manager to, revenue management. I mean, gosh, I started in hotels as a night auditor. I went from full, concession side of things and came over to the hotel and started as night auditor and really kind of had to bring that whole approach full circle. Right. And then every time I've grown into a new position, no matter if I've gotten the right training or not the right training, I've always said, okay, what is it? How can I leave my mark on this position and how can I make it better?
Yeah, And I think so let's talk a little bit about Hospitality America. So can we just talk about what does your portfolio look like? How many hotels? Just a little bit about the company itself. And then I'd love to talk about your core values. So we'll come on to that second. But just what's the overall of the company itself?
Yeah, so we were founded in 1995. Our founder, Chris Cargan, had two owners that wanted to open Hampton Inns in 1995. Back then, it was with Promise, the original owners and founders of Hampton Inn, and they opened those two hotels within a month apart of each other. And both those owners have continued to grow out their portfolio, and throughout that time, we've added new owners and clients. But today we operate 20 hotels for owners and franchisees. That's all east of the Mississippi, and that equates to about $150 million of top line revenue that we're responsible for. And then we're also responsible to and for 900 employees. And so, in my role as president and CEO of Hospitality America, I say that all the time that I have two bosses or two people that I'm responsible for. I'm responsible to our owners who hire us and say that, for us to mitigate risk and to provide the bottom line results that they expect. And then I have the employees that I'm responsible to and responsible for, right? And so without the employees and without us continuing to invest in them, then I can't, we can't provide the service to our clients, our owners either. So, and then that's kind of where our core values and Peach comes in.
Yeah, so Peach. So each letter stands for something, and you already mentioned one of them. Spoiler
Mm,
alert. P is for
yeah,
passion. Is that right?
that's right.
Okay,
That's
so can you
exactly
take
right.
us through what does Peach stand for, all the letters, and how that really manifests as a core value
Yeah.
for the company?
So I started with Hospitality America 11 years ago as a director of sales. And so I've been able to see our company grow and evolve and things that we've done well in the past, things that we haven't historically done well in the past. And so when I was given the opportunity to be COO at the about 2022, the one thing that we didn't quite have at the time was a definition of who we are as a company, right? Our founders have left such a great impact on us. Our culture was set in stone, but we hadn't defined that. So as we were continuing to grow, the big question I had was, okay, how are we assessing the new people that come into our organization? How do they assess us? How do they know what they're getting in Hospitality America? And so that was one of the first things we did was we defined who we are, which is we are passionate with a spirit to serve. We're committed to excellence that inspires results. We adjust, adapt, and overcome. We're stewards of communities inside of our hotel and outside of our hotels. And then we're humble, trustworthy, and transparent. So that's the expectation that our employees can have of me as the president and CEO. And that's the expectation I have of them in our culture.
Right. So those are fantastic core values. Now, I think a lot of people can hear stuff like that. They think, oh, that's really nice. That really resonates. But, our conversation before we started recording, I think, is where we see core values like that, where the feet hit the street, so to speak. So before we hit the record button, we were talking a little bit. You're from Greenville, South Carolina. And I had mentioned that last year I was planning to do a girls' trip. Every year I go with my girls from high school. We leave our families and we go do a fun trip. So our plan was to go to Asheville. It was to go to Asheville, North Carolina, which we were flying into Greenville and we were going to drive down. And of course, they had terrible flooding all through a hurricane and terrible flooding through out that region. And so, can we pick up the story from there? Because you actually have two hotels that are in Asheville. And I would love for you to talk a bit about your disaster response and how those hotels, where they are today.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many stories I could tell. I mean, heartbreaking stories and then just uplifting, motivating stories. And so I'll try to focus on the latter. When it happened, we have four hotels in South Florida, and that owner down there has been a 30-year relationship for us. So we're very accustomed to dealing with hurricanes and what that process looks like when, the forecast says, hey, a hurricane's coming to South Florida. But a hurricane hitting the mountains of North Carolina, no one expected that. I mean, for us, we're like, yeah, we're 3 hours, 4 hours inland. Like we don't expect to necessarily have that. And we had the necessary things like water and just, you may lose power for a couple of hours, something like that. But this storm was devastating. I mean, 2 feet of water, rain in 24 hours is just, it was unbelievable. And the amount of mudslides that were in the area. So, anyways, we had two hotels. One of them lost power for about a week. Then the other one, same. And then the one hotel lost it for about a week, also lost water for about 3 weeks. And so, it's not just the water that we need to consume, it's also flushing the toilets, it's also doing the linen. How do you stay sanitary without running water inside of a building? And so we did everything possible to be able to stay with some type of capacity of occupancy. And what was crazy, just the amount of FEMA that came in, the amount of services that came in, but there was nowhere for them to stay. We weren't the only hotel without water. I mean, pretty much every hotel in Asheville didn't have water because of the dam system had broken, and the amount of filth. I mean, the amount of like sediment that had gotten into the reservoirs. They basically just shut down the filtration system so that they didn't damage it by sending all that silt and sand and dirt all through it. So everybody was in the same situation. And so we just I mean, everything we could do. Greenville we're an hour down the street from, or down the mountain from Asheville. We were still trying to recover because we had lost some power for about a week. But quickly our teams just trying to get in contact with our GMs. I remember we finally got in contact with one of the GMs, and she was literally like hanging out of a window on the top floor with her hand out the window, like with the cell phone, trying to get service because service was so bad. And just the amount of ownership. I mean, just in two core values, the passion that our employees had for our guests and for their hotel and for what we do, but also just the community that they were building by saying to the guests that were there and the surrounding community of like, hey, we are shelter, we are here for you. I mean, just the stress that brings, and it was unbelievable to hear the stories. And so, I mean, even me, I remember I rented a box truck because I'm here in Greenville. I rented a box truck, drove up to that hotel, got all their linen, drove it down to our Embassy Suites here in Greenville. The staff stayed late, did the laundry of the Embassy Hotel, then stayed late and did all the laundry for the hotel that didn't have water. So, and then when they were finished, we boxed it, we put it back in the box truck. I drove it back up there. I mean, whatever we could do because we didn't want to turn away, obviously, there's business on one hand, but on the other hand, I mean, we're a shelter. We people needed to be in a safe place because their homes had literally been washed away from off the mountainside or just, were flooded, and it's devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just incredible to me. I think now more than ever, we seem to have, like we always know, okay, hurricanes. We know when hurricane season is. We know that South Florida's at risk. Like you said, seeing these events where we're not expecting that in the mountains of North Carolina. So, what's your advice to other management companies, hotel GMs? Like, how do you start to think about preparing your teams so that when something like this strikes, I mean, first of all, kudos to your team to, band together under all of that stress and pull it through. But how much preparation should you be thinking about on the front end, and how do you approach that as a management company?
I don't think we can prepare at this point. I think even for us in the mountains of North Carolina and hurricanes coming, I think we have to take everything serious. And it's the old adage of I think for the management companies, we'll just take it all the way back. But for the management companies and for the owners to prepare, I think you can never take anything for granted. Anything that comes into the area, I'd rather be more prepared than underprepared. Always have the emergency binders fully up to date. That's something that we are constantly doing on a year to basis. And then just the crisis binders that we put together for the hotels. A GM, it's a lot to expect them to take over an entire building like that, especially when you don't have power and you can't communicate and you're just literally on an island and can't communicate out. I think it comes down to what kind of support that you can give them in the emergency binders, just the documentation, anything from a step by step to make sure that you're covered on all basis.
Yeah, so we're going to pivot here in a minute and talk about technology, but I want to put a finer point on when you're talking about emergency preparedness, you need paper binders. Like he told
Yeah,
us, like
totally.
there is, like it'd be cool to have you. Maybe you got some walkie-talkies, maybe you got some internet access, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking with our brand reps with Hilton and Marriott recently. I mean, that's something that the brands are thinking of. I mean, I remember I went through a hurricane as a general manager in South Florida, and we went 14 days without internet. And so
Wow.
I went 14 days without a property management system. I mean, it was scary because you have to get your arms around who's in your building, right? And how do you run a hotel? I mean, we were running a hotel off of a spreadsheet that I created with a room matrix, right? But now with cellular device that sometimes with the national disasters, it can knock that out. But the brands now are trying to think of that. How can we run our property management systems off of a cellular device? Can we plug in a cellular device into our network and then boost that out so that we're not losing the ability to run a hotel because we don't have internet?
Yeah, absolutely. So well, that's it's good. It's good that I think we all have to be thinking at this stage, how do you stay one step ahead of the curve? And certainly, so that's not only for anything that has to do with crazy weather patterns, but also the quickly evolving technology landscape. So, I mean, the clip that we are seeing now is pretty crazy. So, it's an essential part of modern hospitality for sure. So how is Hospitality America investing in technology to support your operations, and what tools are you focusing on to ensure that your teams have the information they need to perform their jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that we have a healthy business, so we're able to take a lot, and we're able to invest in that, and that we have great owners who believe in the direction that we're headed, and understand that technology plays a critical piece in that. For a company of our size, we don't have the unlimited budgets like a lot of the big operators have. But whatever we can, we are siphoning that way, and it's been a year by year process. So over the past 3 years, we've invested more in our accounting back of house, back end services that give us a lot more scalability. One of the things that's coming for our industry specifically is a continuous accounting. And so I don't know if you've heard that, but it plays into revenue drastically because if we can't balance our revenues and understand where our revenues are balancing, then how can we forecast appropriately? And so if we're not accruing and actualizing and closing our accounting books on quicker, then it lags our forecasting process behind, right? And so one of the things that we invested in was a good accounting core system that gives us the ability to enhance the AI abilities because they are investing in that, obviously, and for as a software company. And then for us, it's okay, now how are we going to be able to do continuous accounting so that we're not having to close our books 10 days, 15 days after the prior month? We know exactly where we are as soon as the day closes. So that's that side of the accounting. And then obviously on the revenue side, once you have that foundational set from the accounting, then it becomes okay, how are we making quicker decisions where it matters, which is in the GM, general manager seat, and the directors of sales seats. At the end of the day, they are the business leaders of our hotels. They're driving uh, that success and sometimes not success at the properties. So what are we doing to help them make decisions quicker? And so that's coming in the forms of what we're doing is we are partnering with vendors and pulling that data in for ourselves. We're trying to control as much of that data as we can.
Mhm.
We only operate branded hotels, Hilton and Marriott. They're great partners, but they hoard their own data too that we don't get a lot of. They're
Right.
starting to become a little bit more open with that data. And so today, Hospitality America, we have a direct feed connection with Hilton and Marriott. And so what we're doing with that data. So we're hoping eventually to be able to put AI on top of that data so that our decision makers on the boots on the ground can literally interact with that data at like you do with ChatGPT, but it's within our own organization. So there's a lot that's coming with that. We're not there yet, but all of our tech investments is along how do we make decisions quicker to allow our general managers and directors of sales to one, make the decision quicker, and two, have a better impact on our guests and consumers.
Interesting. So the kind of data that you're looking at, is it revenue data, or is it guest preferences, or is it guest profiles? Like what is the focus?
Yeah, great question. So that's the point of bringing it all in house because we have a number of platforms. If it's our labor and efficiency platform and our forward looking pace data compared to our comp sets, right? We want to be able to understand how that interacts. And so if we're able to take a one hotel and benchmarking and say, okay, you're an airport hotel, and we're able to run this labor coefficient. Right now, how do we apply that in other markets? Where can we eke out some differences of knowing that this specific piece of business, airport business, actually cost us X? And so we get a true CPOR, cost per occupied room, down to the business segment level. That's the ultimate like secret to success, right? And then you know how to bid on a piece of business and saying, okay, I know that when I get this business, what my profitability ultimately is going to be, right? And so we're unable to do that today because all of our data lives in all these different platforms. We got to be able to get it in house so that then we can start running those regression models ourselves and doing that testing, if you will.
100%. I mean, you hit it on the head. I think this is the classic problem for hospitality is siloed data. It is everywhere. And whether that's you trying to understand what your guest profile really looks like, or what I love what you're talking about, which is really applying the revenue lens and your costs and going after a specific piece of business. I mean, I don't know if our CFO listens to this podcast, but if he does,
Oh,
Gary,
yeah.
this is for you. Closing your books in less than 10 days and getting
Yeah.
an actual margin. I mean, it's kind of the dream state, right? To be able
Yeah.
to
Not
go to
easy.
an owner and be like, this is exactly how profitable we are based on all these factors.
Exactly.
It's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you're bringing all that in-house, do you have a system that you're using? Is it built on your own, or how are you can I just, if you don't mind sharing, how are
Yeah.
you doing that?
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of following the suit of the big major brands too. I mean, they obviously have much bigger budgets than we do, but I mean, what we're understanding a couple years ago, we went down this path and said, okay, what does this look like, and how could we accomplish it? Do we have to do it ourselves, or can we lay this on something else? And at this time, we didn't quite know what was coming with AI in terms of Chat GPT and Copilot. But quickly in that assessment, we realized Microsoft was going to be the best platform. And so we actually just transitioned away to from our current provider back to Microsoft. And so we built everything off of SharePoint, everything off of Teams, knowing that eventually we were going to be able to put Copilot AI on top of that. And you can't do that just point blank, right? Because there's a number of security risks that we have to make sure that we fence off and understand. So we're being very methodical and very careful in how we do that. But I mean, the other day, I mean, we have all of our star reports go into our teams. And so I went in my Copilot license and said, give me a recap of all of our RevPAR indexes across the company. And bam, like
Wow.
I had them all like in a graph. I mean, it was just fascinating stuff. So,
Wow.
I mean, and it's only going to continue to get better and
Yeah.
better. And so, yeah, so
Yeah.
we've done that. So we're pulling all of that into a data lake today. I'm not saying that we've accomplished everything that we want to, or that we're able to, fully understand it, but we are pulling that data in today.
Mhm.
And then now it's about like, okay, how do we build the foundation to make sure that this business intelligence department is set up for success?
That's right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Our CEO likes to say AI doesn't do data silos, which is true. So
Mm,
it only
yeah,
works if it's in one place. It doesn't know to go look. You have to
exactly.
consolidate it. And obviously this isn't a plug for Revenate, but what we have worked on is being able to ingest all of the guest data from ancillary revenue sources in addition to PMS. So if you just look at the guest side of the equation, plus obviously the spend and all of that, we put all of that into a central location. And of course, that only becomes valuable if it can then be sent out because we know that our customers have their own data lakes that have more than just that, right? You have the accounting details, you have labor, you have all of those things. But vendors, I think the future is any vendor, whether they're Revenate or somebody else, whatever data you have has to be able to be packaged up and sent out and matched up in another system if it's going to be effective. You know.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that we are going through those painstaking things today,
Yeah.
because the data that we're getting is raw, and having to siphon through that based upon whatever platform is sending to us. I mean, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. I'm just, this is the feedback I get when we have the meetings from the
Yeah.
BI side, right? And I've seen some
Entity
of it, but
resolution.
yeah,
Entity
yeah.
resolution is really hard. We hired a guy from Equifax. He's our chief data officer, but
Oh
his
my
whole goal
gosh.
is to make sure we can match it up, scrub it, clean it, and
Yeah.
so it is
Gosh.
not an easy problem, but it's
No.
an interesting one. And if you solve it, you got the keys to the kingdom, basically.
Totally. Yeah. So, and for a company of our size, like I said, I mean, we're, at 20 hotels, we don't have hundreds. And, so our budgets are only so large. And so we have a small team that works really hard, and then we try to use the resources we have to accomplish or to solve solutions, that we can. So,
I I love it. I love it. Well, thank goodness. I'm going to say it. Thank goodness for the geeks.
yeah. Yeah.
I
I
love
only
those
know
guys
enough
and
to be
gals.
dangerous. I mean, and then I get to a level where I like, okay, I tap out. I
Yeah,
can't keep
totally.
going.
Yeah, that's right. Me too.
Yeah.
That's why we're on the go-to-market side of the house. So,
Yeah.
or the,
Yeah.
the sales, marketing, revenue, that's what we do over here, which is great. So last question for you. Looking ahead, what's next for Hospitality America? Are there any exciting plans or innovations or stuff coming up in the near future besides everything we just talked about?
Yeah. So we talked about one, growth. I mean, as we look ahead into the markets, I mean, we haven't talked about too much about our consumers yet, but the consumer sentiment is absolutely changing. Coming out of COVID, inflation has changed a lot of their value perspective, if you will, what they're paying for versus what they're getting. And in our industry, we have a lot of, our guests, or the intent to recommends, or the guest surveys that we're getting, continue to be harder and harder to achieve higher and higher results, because our ADRs, as they have to keep up with inflation of cost, continue to rise. That doesn't mean that our guests are happy always to pay those for products that have been neglected, coming through COVID. And so, luckily for us, we have owners that continue to invest in their assets. That's what we look for in partners, because this the recipe for success for us. Like I said, I mean, we're a small team and a company that's growing, but I want to grow in a very scalable way. And so when I look out ahead into the future, the consumers are telling us they want unique experiences. They're willing to pay up when they feel the value is in return. And that value is in return when it comes to great spaces that they feel warm, inviting, and just vibrant. And they feel the vibrancy from other guests that are in the lobbies or at the bars, at the restaurants. Uh, Experience is huge, obviously, but obviously just the experience level that they have in from our staff, as well. But so for us in Hospitality America, we are opening just about two hotels with our partners, a year for the next 3 years. So that is a good sustainable way for us to grow. But we're also looking to capitalize on the independent boutiques. I mean, not the independent, the branded boutique side of our business. So in the more the Tapestries, the Tributes, of the world within Hilton and Marriott. So we just opened our first Tapestry. We'll open another one next year and another one following that. and we feel really good about where that trajectory of our industry is headed.
Great. Well, Ben, it's been a real pleasure. Let's give a shout out to Asheville. Please,
Yeah,
Asheville's open for business. Please go
it is
support that
open.
community and the hotels.
Please. Yeah,
Yeah.
Asheville is beautiful part of the country. So is Greenville. You can come on down to Greenville too. Hit both of them at the same time. But yeah, check out Hospitality America as well. We got a lot of great things coming. Follow us along on LinkedIn, and you can follow the story.
Sounds great, Ben. We'll put all of that in the show notes. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for being my guest.
I appreciate Karen.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hotel Moment by Revenate. Our community of hoteliers is growing every week, and each guest we speak to is tackling industry challenges with the innovation and flexibility that our industry demands. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe for more content. For more information, head to revenate.com/Hotel Moment Podcast. Until next time, keep innovating.